entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family. Here we go. All right. I believe that you're looking at one of the four Satoshis that's got his face blurred out right here. The man being arrested, let me see if it says which one he is. Here's the thing. Arthur Budvosky, founder of the Liberty Reserve. Now, the Liberty Reserve, and you can go check it out. I encourage you all to go to the Wikipedia page for Liberty Reserve. It was before Bitcoin even existed, and when Bitcoin was created, Liberty Reserve was down in Costa Rica. Okay? This is where it was hatched, and it was Bitcoin before it was Bitcoin, and the feds came in and shut it down. There were two guys that created it, and you don't have to take my word for it. Arthur Budvosky and Vladimir Katz. Who those two names might remind you of, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying those are interesting two names. Go look it up on Wikipedia, Liberty Reserve. But what else was in Costa Rica that we've been lied about? And I've brought this up before. Listen to this clip right here. All you've ever been told, first of all, look at this. We know that JP Morgan was behind Ethereum from the very beginning. Were they also involved in Bitcoin from the very beginning is my question, because somehow Jed McCaleb at Mt. Gox was able to get JP Morgan to bank him. Even to this day, people are having trouble getting crypto to be banked. So how was JP Morgan willing to bank Mt. Gox way back then in the very beginning, unless they somehow knew about it or were involved in it? Next question. Why have we been lied to about where Jed McCaleb was when he created Mt. Gox for all these years? Because we have been lied to. This is an attorney in this clip right here. Listen to where he says a guy went and met Jed McCaleb.
More or less, this would have all been done by now. I feel confident saying this would be completed by now if it weren't for Peter Vicenis.
And so what's his claim?
So this is, his claim is based on a lawsuit. And to understand this lawsuit, we have to go back in time to the early days of Mt. Gox when Jed ran it. One of the first people to contact Jed was Peter, and Peter was very interested in Mt. Gox. And he emailed back and forth with Jed, and I believe at one point went to meet him in Costa Rica where they discussed him becoming a partner, and he turned it down. Then Jed sold it to Mark.
Why did he go to Costa Rica to meet with Jed? I thought Jed was in Japan running Mt. Gox. Turns out he was not. He was running it out of Costa Rica, which was right beside the Liberty Reserve. And they did business with Mt. Gox did business with Liberty Reserve too. We've covered that before as well. And then you've got this. This is Katie Hawn. Do you remember Katie Hawn from ETHgate fame? Katie Hawn is also, she was the assistant U.S. attorney when Ripple got sued in 2015 and XRP was called a virtual currency. She pops back up sitting at Stanford in the crowd, front row, when Joseph Grunfest and Jay Clayton on January 24th, 2018, they are giving a fireside chat at Stanford. Katie Hawn's in the front row. The very next day, Jay Clayton just happens to go to Andreessen Horowitz to put the Ethereum Free Pass in motion. And then within days after the Bill Hinman made the Ethereum Free Pass speech, Katie Hawn ends up at Andreessen Horowitz. Not long after that, Bill Hinman ends up at Andreessen Horowitz. And Katie Hawn, by the way, was the one that did the investigation on the Silk Road, which involved Mt. Gox as well.
Going back to the blockchain and looking at the stolen 21,000 Bitcoin, the $150 million.
Let's look at this chart. Silk Road. Now remember, what was going on is Silk Road was, you could go on there and buy drugs and all kinds of illegal things, and they did it. They were linked up to Mt. Gox somehow, and people were able to do it with Bitcoin or whatever.
We saw that the patterns of the theft were very different from French Maids and Death from Above's. As you can see here, instead of going through a series of convoluted hops, the stolen funds from the Silk Road accounts went straight to one place, to Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was a cryptocurrency exchange based in Japan, but it too had suffered a series of
You think she doesn't know that it was actually in Costa Rica?
hacks to the tune of $500 million.
She was working with the feds, Homeland Security, the same Homeland Security that met with the 4 Satoshis. She was back there during that time period. She knows. By the way, this woman has made millions of dollars in crypto, probably with knowledge of who the 4 Satoshis are, and with a lot more knowledge too. Does that make her an inside trader?
And what this meant was that by the time we traced this to Japan and to Mt. Gox, there were no records available for us to go look at. But remember what I told you about the blockchain, that it's immutable and it's permanent? So we were able to trace the flow of funds through the blockchain from Mt. Gox to a US financial institution. And where that led was also a surprise.
You mean J.P. Morgan, the one that was banking Mt. Gox? The same one that was banking Jeffrey Epstein and was involved in Jeffrey Epstein's tracking thing? Remember, this is why, the same Jeffrey Epstein who was funding MIT while Gary Gensler was there, that had a keen interest in Bitcoin, which for 10 years they were telling us could not be tracked when it was eminently trackable. Almost like Jeffrey Epstein would have used this as a tool to track all the people that were paying him off and he was blackmailing and all that. You can see how all of this ties together and why there's so many secrets.
Right back to the Silk Road Task Force, but not to Knob, to a secret service agent on that same task force. A secret service agent by the name of Sean Bridges.
There were also 2 feds involved in that were stealing the Bitcoin and siphoning it off for themselves, and they went to prison as well. You can decide, but I think that we're very, very close to right over the target in everything I just went over. Thanks for listening.